Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, well, aging. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend John McGuire to discuss our fathers, sports, and retiring successfully. Yeah. All right, so I have John McGuire back. It's been a while since I've had you on the podcast, but always good to kind of catch up and chat with you. So you're retired. You've been retired for how long now?
For 2 years now.
2 years. And how's that going for you?
Well, it's good. It's a lot different. It presents different challenges being retired, and your life changes quite a bit. So I'm learning how to navigate through this, and sometimes it's very good, and sometimes it's not as good. Sometimes I have some difficulty because there's less structure maybe, and I'm kind of somebody that goes off on tangents, as far as studying a topic or what have you, and I lose track of time and that type of thing. So I think I have to be more disciplined in how I manage my time. I'm seeing that.
Yeah. For me personally, I had a student ask me this a couple of weeks ago, when do you think you're going to retire? Of course, I had to make a wisecrack. It's like, so you guys want me to retire? Is that the deal? But for me, I can't see that day when I'm retired. I mean, I'm only 59. So right. I know for many, that is retirement age. They're starting to look at, they're getting to 60, they got to retire. But for me, I don't see what I would do. And I don't feel like I could retire, because my anticipation, my goal is to live another 40 years. So at least 40. I want to hit 100. And I don't want to be sitting around, and I don't know what I would do. And so it's, kind of interesting to kind of have that conversation about what do you do when you're retired or semi-retired to feel useful and, to still feel productive and to kind of keep you wanting to keep going. So I think that's a good conversation maybe to have today.
Yeah. I remember my father years ago saying something, that he noticed that the people that retired to the couch didn't live that long, but the people that, retired and maintained an active life, they seem to do better. And I think that's a big part of it. Like I never have like a feeling like there's nothing to do. That's not like, there might be some people when they're retired that have that. Well, what am I going to do? There's still almost not enough time in the day to do things still. I play golf like almost every day that I'm able to play golf. I live in a place that has a 9-hole course. I play throughout the winter as long as the temperature doesn't go under 30 degrees. But I'll play when it's pretty brutal out there, high 30s and what have you. It's a different game because you're so bundled up and what have you. But I get to walk around the course, hit the ball, chase the ball, what have you. Just the walking around and carrying the bag and all that is good for me. And I hope to continue doing that as long as I can. And, but, I have grandchildren. COVID has put a damper on that, but I was very active with them, starting to pick that up again now with their little league and what have you.
Yeah. Now, are you coaching Little League at all, or what are you doing with the
No,
grandkids?
no, I just go to the games. I don't see myself, I mean, I guess could be a little league coach, uh, and witnessing how poorly they are coached gives me thought that maybe I should, because I had experience seeing a coach coaching 8 year olds that was just way over the top. Like this guy thought he was coaching a major league baseball team when, you know, 8 year olds, this is about learning the fundamentals of the game. Score is not that important. Not that it's unimportant because you're keeping score. You should always, if you're keeping score, you should try to win. But if you lose, it's not a big deal. But you, as the coach, goal should be to send the kids to the next level, knowing the fundamentals, the rules. Those are the most important things when you're teaching, T-ball or 8 years old, farms and even minors. When they start getting to the majors in Little League, that goes up to 12, those get a little bit more competitive. And the kids start getting, better as far as more skilled. Uh, but
Well, I
then you
thought that T-ball was kind of the gateway to coaching in the majors.
have, you would think if I listen to these men, and I just see it. I'm not sure this is accurate in all cases, but these are frustrated men that probably didn't have a lot of success themselves playing, and are kind of living vicariously through their child and their coaching to prove something that. And I really think if you're going to do that, you really should approach it with no ego.
Yeah.
Not care about the results of the game as far as score, but like I said before, you know, uh, making sure the kids, know what base to throw to, can bunt a ball. Although bunting, I know, is like a lost art in baseball. We don't do that anymore in the major leagues. But how to field your position, and to me, it's the one fundamental, the one thing in baseball that I know was the most important thing to me playing, and it was imparted to me by a coach when I played on the freshman baseball team in high school. When I was an eighth grader, I was the starting third baseman on the freshman team, and he said to me, before every pitch, when you're playing third or any position, ask yourself the question, if the ball's hit to me, what do I do with it? And I did that every single pitch. So I was never, when the ball was hit to me, there was never any doubt what I was doing with the ball. Like, okay, man on first, one out, hard hit ball, going to second for double play. It would be all rehearsed in my head so that when you heard the crack of the bat and the ball came on you, there was no thinking about what do I do with the ball now. And I see that happen. I see in youth leagues, the kid might make a good play in the field, but he has no idea what to do with it once it's in his glove. So that's something I would impart upon every kid playing baseball, that in the field, to be in the game, because I'm sure you've witnessed a little league game with the kids in the right field, picking up the dandelions or something, and the ball hit over his head, because first of all, it's boring to be out in right field in a little league game because nobody hits it out there, but you have to be in the game mentally. And that's one thing I know I would impart.
Yeah, see, baseball was always a religious experience for me. I'd sit out there because I was the kid in right field, because that was the place they wanted to keep me away from the ball as best as possible. And I just, every time the ball was hit, I'd be praying, "Oh God, don't hit it to me. Don't hit it to me."
Yeah. I can, and I've had people say the same thing. And it was opposite for me, because I remember distinctly wanting the ball hit to me all the time. Because I had aptitude as a young kid, very young. And I used to go down my basement with a glove and a ball and throw it into the wall. And I would be down there hours, like throwing myself ground balls. To like it was almost felt like when I saw a ground ball, I've seen this ball before. I've seen how many bounces it's going to take to get to me, kind of. And I wasn't nervous. You know, I was more nervous, like if I had to ask a girl out to the dance or something, than I was doing that.
Yeah.
You know, but that, fortunately for me, playing ball, that was one of the places I felt at home. But I found life harder than playing.
There's a lot of life lessons in that, and we recognize what somebody is good at. We help them get better at it. And the goal is, what do I do next with this? And I think we kind of ignore that a lot in both, sports and just teaching in general. You have a lot of kids, switch analogies a little bit here, but I had a friend recently post something about, it was a funny meme, and that was the main point, I think, of sharing it. But, the point of the meme was that in education, we don't teach kids how to do taxes, and we should be teaching how to do taxes instead of, some of the factual stuff that we teach the kids. And it's like, well, the point is, if you take math in school, if you can do math, you can do taxes, because taxes are basically addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. You learn that in elementary school. Now it's, taxation is all complicated and everything, and that's a different story, but you're not going to teach that in school because people have to go to college for years to figure out tax code. And, the only people who really know the tax code are the people that are writing it and taking advantage of it.
Yeah. Right. I agree.
But, back to the sports analogy and the life analogy, I think that's important that we are recognizing, what interests people and help them to develop those skills and say, okay, now what are we going to do next with it? I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging.
I would agree with that. I've had this conversation with my wife regarding my grandchildren. I was involved in athletics, but I said, I don't care if they play any sports. I think it's good to have the physical activities, but my concern most is that they pursue things that they have passion for and they might have some aptitude for, because I'd rather see, like, say, for instance, you're in Little League and you're not really that good of a player. You tried it, you played the season or two, and you can see that you're not really that good, but you can play the trumpet a little bit when you picked it up, like that was, well, let's focus on the things we can have success with, and not just to avoid the other things, but let's go in the direction of our strengths and our passions and look for those. Like, as a parent or as a teacher, like, how many times I've seen in my life coaches have players out of position because they see them as this type of player, and they're not. They're more of this type, some other type of player. And the coaches want to, put the square peg in the round hole. He's convinced that the person is this, where, they were probably better suited for a different position and might have had some success. Let's get the kids in places where they can succeed.
Yeah.
And I think this as a teacher, how confidence comes from doing. I'm sure you've seen it with your own children when they had success, like, say, in their sports. That made them feel better about themselves. They like, oh, I can do this. There's a doubt before that, but now, wow, I can do this. I'm pretty good, without being, conceited about it, but just, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I
You
think
just got to get them trying multiple things. And, you know, part of it's going to be failing and learning to fail. But part of it is, where are you going to find your passion in failing that's going to make you want to be better?
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I try to tell my grandchildren, we all have failure. We all lose a game. But, you play any sport, you're going to lose a game. In baseball, the best players that are in the Hall of Fame failed 7 out of 10 times when they went to the plate.
Yeah.
So, that should tell you something that, they didn't let those failures every 7 out of 10 stop them from playing. They continued on. So recognize that, we're going to lose some battles, but there's a war kind of, you dust yourself off, and you go back at it. Or if you're not, if you want to cease with that activity because you don't like it and you don't have aptitude, you stop, but not when you're during the year. You continue. If you've made a commitment with a team and you have to stay to the end of the year, and then if you don't want to do this anymore, fine. But you have you have to. I think you'd agree with, right? For kids,
absolutely.
they have to, fulfill their commitment to the other people. Of course, we're trying to raise citizens,
Yeah.
right? Like I've said to my wife and my ex-wife when raising kids, the most important grade I look for is the citizenship grade first. Because if they can't get along with their classmates and their teachers, what are they going to do in this world when they go out there? If they're misbehaving or they're problematic in their school, I don't really care if they got 100 on the test, if they haven't done that first. And I don't really think we see that as the standard all the time.
You see so many people that, if you look at their grade reports when they're in elementary school, it's Susie's too social. She talks too much to her friends. And those are the people that end up being the most successful because they have better social interactions with people and they can manage people. They get along with people. And, in reality, a lot of the knowledge-based stuff that we push on kids, to memorize, it's useless, especially in a day when, all the knowledge in the world is in your pocket in your cell phone. You need to just learn how to manage, understand how to use knowledge, but we need to build those social skills and those types of things. I mean, I work with a lot of students who, I've had students who have been trying to get into nursing programs and they maybe just fall a little bit shy of the GPA because now to kind of get in nursing programs, you almost need a 4.0. I have a student right now who is in our major because she's pre-nursing, 4.0 student has not gotten into a nursing program. And she works for a fast food chain. I won't identify her or name the food chain, but she's making over 6 figures working as a manager for this fast food chain. And I'm like, why then do you want to be a nurse? And she's like, I just have a passion. I want to, work with people. I just, love the field. And it's like, that's the person needs to be nursing. Now she's got the grades. I don't understand why she's not getting in, but she's also got the compassion, the personality and everything else. And I've had other students that were, A-B students that this person would be phenomenal. Yeah. They have a passion for people. They're compassionate, they're caring. They're all the things that you need in a nurse, and the skills you can learn and with experience and practice and everything else. Grades, big deal. I mean, so you were able to regurgitate everything that I gave you in class and thought was important on the tests. And in many cases, if you're getting 100 on the test, I didn't test you enough because I haven't revealed to you what you don't know. And what you don't know is probably more important than what you do know.
Right.
And so, well, we're going off on a lot of different angles and tangents
Yeah,
here, but I like this.
I think sometimes that's a function of so many different directions that health and aging and uh, you know this topic goes on, and but it's all important. I know we started talking about the things you can do when you're retired, and coaching fell into that, and we went off from there.
But I do think it kind of opens up, kind of to get back on that topic of retirement is, retirement becomes an opportunity to do many of the things that maybe we haven't done, or that they're passions that we kind of left aside for a while.
I agree.
I have a friend who is just a phenomenal artist, and he moved away. I think we were in high school. He moved out this way to Washington. But when we were kids, I remember just kind of going down his house and just kind of laying on the floor and drawing. And he could draw, Spider-Man and all these Marvel and DC comics extremely well.
That's so awesome.
And, just as a fifth grader, I mean, he was just a phenomenal artist. And, he later went on, when he moved away, I kind of lost touch with them, and I reconnected in probably the last few years. But I mean, he went on, he did artwork for the comic Spawn and a bunch of big name comics. He's done either the pencils, the ink, or the coloring for, and, he does all these other things, and he's just phenomenally talented. And, my talent in drawing was not as good. I mean, I had some talent. I could draw, but I haven't drawn in years. I kind of gravitated more toward the comic strip kind of art, but even that I haven't done in a while. And so it's like, part of me is like, maybe I need to kind of get back into that, when retirement finally comes and I am not teaching all the time, or, I'm not even teaching part-time, which is really what I consider doing in retirement. I'll move somewhere and I'll just try and teach at a community college or university as an adjunct. But, there's those kind of things that I haven't worked on in years, or picking up some topics that I haven't looked at in years.
I can see that as being a valuable direction for many people. You mentioned, art, drawing, to resume that. And I'm sure other people have, always had maybe a desire to at least explore something, some other, I know my father had always wanted to see all the states in the U.S. So he did that. He had various mobile homes and campers and trailers and what have you. And he went all over the United States, multiple times. He got books self-published. He wrote screenplays. He went prospecting for gold. All these things he had always wanted to do. And I always admired that he did it. He wasn't an educated person. I'm sure he lied about his education too. No, my father, he was, he was full of tall tales, but he was smart.
Yeah.
And he could write. And
he started writing late in life, right after retirement.
Yes. Yeah. He took one course at some adult ed thing, and he was enjoying it. And then it went off. And I have, after he died, his wife sent back hard copies of his screenplays and novels and things, short stories and what have you, poems. And I have some on disc, and I read through them, and they're pretty good. He almost sold a treatment for a story that he wrote to HBO. Came really close. I have the letter on the HBO letterhead from when they were corresponding back and forth. They recommended the project and the writer. And my father didn't understand what rewrites were. So when they wanted him to do a rewrite, he was, against it. But he didn't understand that was basically the process everybody goes through.
Yeah.
Is there's some rewrites to scripts and, screenplays and what have you. So I think that probably cost him because they did like the idea and the story, but I imagine they wanted to, alter some aspects of it. And it's very rare, unless you're like one of these great writers or what have you, that you get the say in exactly what, is going to go down in a movie. But
And sometimes it's just a matter of time. It's like, well, we need this to be down to like an hour and a half. And, we
yes,
just need to cut out a little bit to get it smaller. I mean, even some of the best
yeah,
movies, you see like, some of these epic films that have been done over the years and they come out remastered, 30, 40 years later, and they have, scenes that have been added back in.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
even the
know
greats.
what the format. I think it's 120 pages for a standard movie, because if you send a movie out, a screenplay to studios and what have you, if it's not in the right format, they will take and just throw it in the cylindrical file right away,
Yeah.
because there's a template kind of that it has to. Took my father a while to learn that, he and he became knowledgeable on what, how to send a query letter and, various ways of communicating with the people that make movies. And he sent me a book one time by, I think the guy's name is Sid Field, on how to write a screenplay. It's a really popular book, and a lot of people have used that like as the guide on how to write a screenplay. And he lays out everything, and goes through, where he takes certain screenplays and, of successful movies and explains why this worked. And, so I've read that, and it was pretty interesting book. And there's a software called Final Draft that almost all the real writers for screenplays and, plays and what have you use that software. It's very expensive, but it's almost invaluable for writers.
Yeah.
So I've learned that from, just talking to my father over the years. Now, on this aging, I think there's another area that is important, and it's like the existential thoughts of the retiree. I think that bears into it, where I think people go into like, what's it, where have I been? Where am I going now? Kind of thing. Have I done anything meaningful? Can I still do something meaningful? I think that's important. I think, I don't think enough is probably spoken about that portion.
And I think, when you look at that, a lot of people get trapped in looking back in thinking that they didn't do anything kind of impactful in their life or did anything of value, and they get stuck in that. And then they spend the rest of their years, which tend to be shorter because they're looking back instead of forward.
Yeah.
And, they're spent looking back rather than either looking at what they have accomplished and what's coming out of that, and then looking forward to what else I can do, or just simply, okay, if I haven't accomplished anything, what can I do going
Right.
forward? And, you were talking about your dad and, my dad, I think, are both very much alike. And I admire both of their approaches to retirement, where, I mean, later in life, they both kind of got into things or willing to try things that they haven't done before.
Yeah, your dad's quite a man. I mean, from the things you've told me and the kind of courage he has, right? And self-confidence, I would say, right? Falls into that, your father. I have a ton of admiration and respect for that.
And he's probably failed at more things than the average man because he's tried so many different things. And, It
Gotta
took
love
me a
that.
while in life to kind of recognize that success that came from a lot of those things. But, you can look at things. The guy got a tryout with the Steelers back in the 60s, never played football in
Right.
his life and got on training camp. How the heck do you do that? And he's been in some movies. I mean, not
Yeah.
a, premier role per se, but,
But he's in the movie.
yeah. And, he's written some stuff. It's really fun to kind of see that. And, I think both of our fathers, they aged well because once they kind of got to retirement, they were still looking at things that they can do and wanted to do.
You'll appreciate this about my father. He was a steam fitter by trade, and he and my mom had gotten divorced, and he was living by himself in an apartment complex, and he was in his late 50s. He was still working, uh, and there was a gym in the complex. And he said, I had no idea about any of this stuff. He says, so I went in there one day and there was a bunch of young guys, he said. And I asked them to show me how to use the machines. And he says, they took a liking to me. So I used to go there several times a week and they would add the weights and tell me what to do. So he says to me, he said, I'll tell you, he goes, I could go up ladders as a steam fitter better at 50 something years old than I could when I was 30. He goes, the strength that I got from these guys helping me, he goes, I was never that strong in my life. So he became a big advocate of people weight training, and he never was. Like when I played ball, he's, don't lift weights because you won't be able to throw the ball as well, which was, we know now that wasn't correct. But once he learned the merits, he was like a preacher when it came to that topic, because so he wasn't afraid to go in there and say, I don't know what I'm doing, show me. And sometimes I think people are afraid to tell people I don't know, and I don't know is okay. If you don't know, how are you going to know if somebody doesn't teach you? And I think that falls into, if you have an interest that you don't know if you're any good at, well, go to the people that can help you. My wife started painting within the last 3 or 4 years, and she has some aptitude, and she does it all the time now. It's like become her passion. I'm so thrilled for her that she has this outlet now where she can be creative and admire her work, and and how it started. She went to a paint night where, they have these paint nights, where you drink wine and the person guides you through how to paint something. Well, that paint night turned into like a, every week hobby for my wife. So there are lots of things we can do, and I think we can also probably impart our knowledge on things to younger people. I mean, I know there are programs where people advise younger people in business. They make themselves available.
Yeah, that's that SCORE program through the SBA. I worked with a few people in that were in retirement, that when we started our business, that volunteered their time.
So there are ways you can give back, or look to better this world, right? I think if you approach it that way on what you can give back, you'll never be without something to do.
Yeah.
There'll always be people to help. I know I try to invest in people. That's been my way of life to begin with. My relationships with people. I still have lots of relationships with people that I've met throughout my life, and that's really the most important things to me. And you can still keep those going when you get older and probably, you know, make them better in a sense, you know, because now you have some time. Like, you know, I get together with guys I grew up with to play golf, and, you know, we have outings, and, you know, it's just good to keep that contact with people, because I know it's easy, you know, to choose the path of least resistance. You're retired. I'm not going to do anything today, or, you know, but like you, I look for things to do. I'm thinking about starting another business. I retired from business. I stopped my business, but I've been thinking, brainstorming of ways to start another business. You know, uh, I have a couple of ideas, but nothing that I'm sold on yet. But that's exciting to me somewhat. You know, because you can pick your, you can use, especially in the internet age, you can pick your own times to
Yeah.
do what you have to do, and work on like websites and, those types of things, which, I enjoy doing it when, I own my business. So we have a lot of things we can do to impart back to this world.
And I think, retirement's a great time for continued self-discovery too. What are our gifts that we haven't explored yet in our lives? I think we tend to think that exploration basically ends in high school as you choose your career and then you go forward. And
I think there's always, I know for me, there's always growth available. There's always new things to learn. And I mean, I learn things, all the time that kind of just blow me away, like, wow, I never knew that. And it's exciting to learn. I think that's the one thing that probably can keep your mind young is, finding things that excite you, finding things that, stimulate you. And, I certainly am never at a loss, to find things, like I play guitar poorly and, several instruments poorly, but it doesn't mean I don't practice it a lot. And I watch videos and people instructing, and I marvel at, like, say, guitar teachers. There are hundreds of guitar teachers that are great.
Yeah.
And great players that it's like amazing to me that there are so many good guitar players, say, on YouTube. So much talent that we will never hear these people like in a professional success, but they are successful because they're amazing musicians. They just don't have mass appeal, maybe.
Yeah.
But as far as the skill of like playing a guitar, like, I like swing jazz music from 30s and 40s. And I watch some of these guys play that music, finger style jazz guitar, and I'm like in awe. Now, that's not a big, not too many people want to see somebody play or listen to somebody play swing jazz on a, finger style on a guitar. But for those who do, like myself, like, it's amazing. It's thrilling to watch these guys who are so proficient and most of them extremely humble about it, and, or golf. Now, I will say this: there's a lot of lousy golf instructors on YouTube, but there are, I don't know, that I've seen, 30 or 40 that are terrific, like invaluable, as far as imparting knowledge of how golf can be played today. And most of those guys teach, if it's not exactly the same, it's very close, because golf has become high tech now, where, it used to be anecdotal teaching. They would, if you watch a video of somebody swinging a golf club, you can make some observations and think you have down what they're doing. but it isn't until they now have the ability in 3D where they hook, like, say, the best professionals up to these, like, basically a suit that has points all over it. So they swing the club while having this on. Now, the golf instructor can see the actual movements that are happening. This is not anecdotal thing, because there's camera distortion. And depending on where a camera is, it can almost lie to you on what's actually happening. Where now they know what's happening. The teachers that use this technology, it's not a guess. This is exactly what's happening. And some of them will take, like, they have an avatar where they have the avatar of the professional swinging a club. And then they have you in the same thing, you swing. And they put both of you in the same place now. And they show you the difference between you and the pro. And so now they're not going to try to mold your swing to the pro. They'll take what you're already doing, but they'll say, see, when you do this move right here, that throws the whole thing off because you can't get back to here, say. This is the one area where you have to change this to this, and then the other things will work that you're doing. But they never had that ability before, to break it down like that. And, there are guys putting this stuff out there for free on YouTube. Now, if you would go to a lesson, it would be $500 an hour to go to one of their studios to do this. It's really expensive, and probably only wealthy people are doing it. But they're putting the basic stuff out there for free. And I just find it, amazing what has changed. Here's a good use of technology, right? That,
there's a lot of technology out there that we old geezers could capitalize on once we figure out how to use it.
Getting back to my father didn't know how to copy and paste. So he used to retype.
Oh my.
And one time I just mentioned, well, I just copy and paste. He goes, what is that? I said, Dad. And when I told him, he goes, he was really angry. Goes, you mean I could have been doing this? But I have to admire his tenacity that he would type the things again. It wasn't going to deter him.
In their day, that's what you had to do. You messed up on a typewriter, you had to retype the whole thing.
Yeah, that's basic.
I think of it, when I did my dissertation for my PhD, it's like, I could not imagine having to have done that with an old typewriter. Where I mess up a page, I got to go, or one word, you got to go back and retype that whole page and hope that it doesn't disrupt pages surrounding it, and have to type more.
Yeah.
Now it's like just a highlight and a click and you can fix everything. And now you have software that even, I just discovered the editor function as I'm writing my textbook that I'm working on. That, you can just click on editor when you go into tools, and it basically highlights everything that is misspelled, grammar issues, and all this kind of stuff. And you just walk through each of them, correct it, and you're done.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. I've realized certain little mistakes that I've kind of just started making over the years that I thought was, the right punctuation. And it's like, nope, that's wrong. So,
that's pretty cool, right? Yeah. I would think that's now like invaluable to you, especially when writing a textbook, right?
Oh yeah, it saved me a lot of time. That and having a former student reread it and read the book and give me feedback. I have a former student who's a physician assistant, and he's just been invaluable in
that's good
finding misspelled words or some of these different punctuation errors and things like that I just habitually keep making. And so when you read what you've written, you don't see it.
My father would have me read stuff, and he didn't like when he was wrong. So he had one Civil War story, and in the story, it's it starts in New York. People joining the Northern Army, younger people, and he had in one of the scenes the Statue of Liberty. So I said, yeah, Dad, that wasn't there yet. Oh, he was really mad, but good thing, like you can't have that in a book based on historical fiction. You can't have something that's not factually accurate. Which I was also surprised that it got in there to begin with, that because he was usually very diligent in not making that type of an error. But when I told him, yeah, he was he didn't like to be corrected on anything. So
could have just kind of shifted. It was a parallel universe, or put a bunch of apes on horses, and it's the future.
Yeah.
There's things you can fix it. I'm sure that's how Planet of the Apes actually,
Yeah.
it wasn't a mistake. It was a mistake that Charlton Heston saw the head of the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
And they said, "Oh, we'll just fix it by making him realize that he's actually in the future."
Yeah. Classic.
So what else are you up to in retirement?
Well, like I said, most of my, I had been a member of a band where I was writing the lyrics. I probably wrote the lyrics to, close to 80 songs. And unfortunately, I was the singer because I was the least lousy singer of the four guys in the band. So I was the default singer. I really didn't want to do it, but in order to be a team player, and I did it. And I don't even like listening to our music because I don't like hearing myself sing. But, sometimes you got to suck it up and just do something that's uncomfortable for the sake of the whole, the team. So, but with COVID, that has another thing that has put the band on hold for me. I know some of the members are back playing together. I'm not there yet in, being in close quarters, singing and in a basement area with four people. I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. It doesn't sound as good with a mask over your face.
No. Well, though mine might.
There you go. You might suddenly
the way I sing it could help. But what I found with that, since I started doing it, there's a great, like almost meditative quality to playing music, especially when you're doing a jam and it goes on for a while. You get into almost like a trance-like. It's hard to explain. Like kind of time stands still. I think they're using the term flow now, right? I've probably heard that, right?
Yeah, getting in the flow.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. And like, because I would play, I play the harmonica, and I'd be playing little harmonica riffs off the lead guitar riffs, and we'd be going back and forth. It's almost communication, feeding back. And when it goes on for a long period of time, and with the rhythm section, keeping the rhythm and doing that, it just kind of feels like similar to when I meditate, which I do. That's one of my things, meditation. That has been something that I would have continued. I hope to continue again, but again, COVID had put a little bit of a damper on that.
Yeah.
But that's something, like I'm not a musician, but I play one in this band kind of, but it's a lot of fun and something, that I would have never thought I'd be doing. So that, and the other thing, which will start up for me pretty soon, is I do kayak fishing. I have a pedal kayak made by this company, Hobie.
Yeah, Hobies are good.
where they have what they call a drive where, you put that in the center of the kayak. It comes in and out as you take it in and out as you use the kayak, and it allows you to, by pedal. Now I've had rowing kayaks and they're good too, but this is a game changer. The pedal kayaks, you go so much faster, and it has a rudder, that you can steer left and right. That's right by your side when you're operating the kayak. And I go out in the bay, not that far, but trying to catch fish. And that's another, just being on the water, whether you catch fish or not, and pedaling around out there is just so much fun. And again, it's exercise too, using your legs. And I mean, I don't think it's really that taxing, but it's enough to get a little bit of a workout, which can only help.
Yeah, see, when I kayak, I got to make it a workout. Pam and I go out together. Right. She wants to look at the trees and the animals and the buildings and everything, and I'm just like powering down. Getting there as fast as I can. How much am I engaging my core? What's my technique like? And so we have to. I have to kind of hold myself back a little bit when I go kayaking with her. And I need to get out a little bit more. And that's probably something I will hopefully do a little bit more when the time comes for me to retire, is, get someplace where I can kayak a lot, because I love kayaking. We were in Michigan. I was doing it a lot because I didn't have as long a commute to work. I could keep a kayak on top of my car. I had an SUV at the time. And so it could hold the kayak pretty easily. When I shifted to, a smaller fuel efficient car, I couldn't really carry the kayak around. Now I got my Ford Maverick, so I got to get a roof rack for that, and I'll start hopefully kayaking again a lot this summer. But when I can get in the water on a daily basis, it's great. I mean, if I worked at a place where I could actually kayak to work, I would love to do that.
I can imagine. Yeah, that would be a nice workout to start the day in effect. And I know the Hobie has they used to be prohibitive almost to buy the pedal ones, because they were all close to $3,000. But the ones that I bought, I can't remember the Passport, the Hobie Passport. They're around $1,500, and we got one for me and one for my wife. And because I would have never been able to justify paying $6,000 for 2 kayaks. But
you can always justify it. It might not be a rightful justification.
Right. Yeah, I could delude myself in thinking that was a good idea, but it would be for me, but not so much, I don't think, for my wife. I think my wife does it because, just to go along with me, and plus she works out. So, she's got the Nordic bike here, and she does it every day. She's faithful. She wakes up at 5 a.m. and she exercises. That's clockwork with her. And
I think the key to those justifications are getting the spouse on board, and you make it look like you're suffering by not having it, and then you got to have it. It's like when I got my, I started using the Bulgarian bag. I made the ones out of inner tubes, and worked with those. And Pam saw how passionate I was about using them, and I got one of the knockoff ones that you had to fill yourself, and didn't get a great brand, and it kind of immediately tore, and there were some challenges with that. But I kept plugging away at it and still using it. And finally she's like, I think we need to get you one, and so I now have one. I have one. She has one, and
I know you're a big advocate, and I still use the one. It's not a Bulgarian bag; it's one of the knockoffs, but it's a lighter one, so it's not going to tear. It has a little tear, but I taped it, so it's still functional. But it's definitely it engages everything.
Oh yeah.
It's such a great tool.
Well, I'm looking at, talking about things that we can do in our retirement. we have a new wrestling coach for Liam's program, and between him and some of the parents and even myself, kind of pushing, we need to get a strength program together for the team, and so
I love that
I'm
idea.
taking that on. Went through all of my certifications
That's
to prove
great.
that I'm not some kind of deviant that they're letting into the high
Yeah.
school and giving a
Yeah.
key to the weight room. And so we're going to be starting that soon. But that's one of the things I want to get is some Bulgarian bags for the team. But
Good
when
idea.
you price out the really good ones, they're quite expensive. I mean, you
Yeah.
can spend probably several $1,000s just to get enough for the team.
You
But
need the alumni. So you need to get to the alumni association and say, "Hey, former wrestlers here, we need a little help here."
yeah, well, we're working on that this year for things like, and I'm on the board now, so
Great. I'm
getting
so glad
involved
to
with
hear
that.
that.
But we have to get new mats, and that's going to be at least 15,000 this fall. We
Wow.
have Destiny Rodriguez is our only female wrestler on the team, and she is of international quality. I mean,
Love to hear it.
she's going back this summer to hopefully win her second world championship. And so,
Good
we're
for her.
looking at raising money to get her there because, for her family, it gets quite expensive, the number of international events that she's gone to, national events and
I can only
competitions, and
imagine.
making sure
Yeah.
that a parent gets along and a coach. And so, we're supporting that. And, there's just they're getting new warm ups. And so it's going to be a big year for fundraising. And so I really kind of find it hard to say, and hey, can we tack on
Yeah.
another couple thousand for
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's probably something that I'll donate myself, but in order to justify it, I'm looking at, there's a company locally here that makes a fillable bag that actually looks
Oh, cool.
of really, really, really good quality. And so I'm waiting to get that information today. And
Well, I hope
if
that
that
works
works out
out.
well, then I got a lot of work filling them all, but should save quite a bit of money. So
Well, I think that, the school having you in that capacity they've really scored. Because I think we can probably agree that some of the people that schools hire outside of the school nowadays because they can't get the commitment in the from the teachers to coach all the sports and do various things like that. Uh, that having you is a tremendous gift for the school. They scored, and I'd like to. I can't wait to hear more because I know it's going to bear fruit. I know it's going to be successful. I'm sure of that.
well, I hope I can
And
prove you correct.
oh, I really, if there was a bet I could make on this, I would wager on this that this is going to be, that you're going to see, on the mat a tangible difference, and the kids will enjoy it because even though it's going to be hard, when they're challenged, kids are underestimated. you know, if you can be one on one with them and explain the reasoning why you want to do something, why something is better. In most cases, they're going to get on board. Like I know of coaches that wouldn't put certain offenses in football because they didn't think the kids could do it. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
these kids are smart. You could put an NFL offense in there, and if you take the time and explain what they have to do, they can do it. These are smart. The kids are smart.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Well, my
Go ahead.
dad coached Little League football. He was like the only coach, he and his partner in coaching the team were the only coaches that were actually just signaling in the plays to the
There you go.
players.
Yeah.
Just everybody else, the coach would be out there with a clipboard showing the kids what to do, and the other coaches were like, well, "What do you do?" Well, we just the kids know the plays. We just signal them, tell them what to call,
Yeah.
and they called it. And they always had championship teams. I mean, it was phenomenal that what he was able to do with those kids.
Yeah. Well, if you know how to use stuff like that to the advantage, and you trust your kids, like I would rather lose a game because I have said this. Okay, so you're a coach, you're an educator, right? Now, the ultimate goal is to send these kids out of high school in some direction, whether they're going to college or wherever they're going, to be successful in the world, to have experience in the world. Well, if you, for instance, totally control the game from the sidelines as the coach, and you don't say let the quarterback or the guys on the team call the plays at some level, well, you just tell him that he's not bright enough to do this. Where I'd rather lose a game where my quarterback maybe made a poor decision in a game, and then we could learn from it, than just control, like, okay, every single play is called. Well, you're just managing the game for these kids, like these kids are robots, and you run an offense, say, okay, you run an offense like a, a running offense, an option or a wing T where you don't throw the ball. Well, I got news for you, coach. Where they pay people to play football, they throw the ball like all the time. So how do you know if the kids you're coaching might not have aptitude to someday play in the NFL if you're not showcasing a skill that can translate where a college coach would say, oh, wow, that kid can throw, that kid can catch, that kid can pass block. You've never showcased that ability, and they get overlooked because you run the ball every play or you run some gimmick offense. I don't think you're serving your kids well.
Yeah. And college coaches aren't looking at win-loss records per se. They're looking at athleticism and talent that they can develop, and they're responsible now for winning.
Right. But you even see in college football, right, who they're supposed to be the feeding grounds for the NFL, where there are teams that don't throw the ball a lot and don't run a pro system. And it's like, okay, in baseball, in the minor leagues, they play the same game as they play in the major leagues. It's still baseball, right? Yeah. So they have experience in the minor leagues. Where, like, if you go to college and say you're, a good receiver, and you play on a school that never throws, very rarely throws, does the wishbone or veer offense or wing T type thing, and you never get picked by a pro team, and you might have had enough ability, but it was never showcased, because I'm convinced there are guys definitely that are not employed playing football that could be playing in the professional ranks. I'm not saying it's a prolific amount, but there are some that get missed every year because they're not coached up right in college, or the recruiters miss them.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of things. And some guys fight through that. Some guys won't let that stop them. They'll walk on a team and make it, so, there's that end of it too. But I think as coaches and educators, it's best to try to get yourself out of the way, but I could see from the coach's point, the alumni is not going to pay for you to put guys to the next level. The alumni is only interested in wins. That's why they donate their money, in which the alumni associations are huge in some of the big schools.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's business,
That's what's sad about the state of sports today, is it's not about developing the individual. It's all about the entertainment that it provides for somebody.
I agree 100%. And, I'm a wrestling enthusiast, even though I've never wrestled. I've always been. I've always understood it. I always loved watching, especially people I knew. I loved watching the sport. I understood the nakedness they have when they're out there alone, and the stress and the teamwork that people pulling for them. That whole thing, it's like a play almost. It's like a drama happening, and it's like theater in a way. And people don't appreciate, the average person, I'm sure, the effort it takes to get on the mat and do well, the punishment that you as a wrestler have to put on yourself to be able to compete. I just think it's, and it's a pure sport. No, there's no balls, there's no equipment. It's you and the other guy or gal now, which I'm glad there's female wrestling. You know, I never would have had aptitude. And I was not a strong person. Never was strong. Like I could play the sports. You could throw a ball, but I would have never been a wrestler. But I don't know. Maybe that's why I admired it more, because I wasn't good at it. Just I was kind of in awe of it, and I still am.
See, though, you'll never know how good you could have been at it.
No, I really don't. I mean, but I definitely would have got my butt kicked at East Meadow High School because there were like 3 and 4 deep. Like the guy who was like the fourth best guy could win if he wrestled. Like he in a dual meet, he probably could have beat the guy on the other team who was the number one guy on the other team quite often. And so if you got on the mat at East Meadow, you had to be a pretty tough guy and pretty skilled. It wasn't for the faint of heart. All the, excuse the expression, badasses were on the wrestling team.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed it. And the whole, I think for interscholastic, activity, the whole sound of a wrestling match, how loud it was back when I went, and when a guy got pinned and you heard the ref's hand hit the mat and then the screaming, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Nothing like that, in high school sports, and I'm like I said, I was always a fan. I'm still a fan. And if there was one sport I think that I would pick for anybody that they can gain the most benefit from, it would be wrestling. I don't think, I don't think it's not even close, really. The other sports are all good, but wrestling, I think, teaches you more and develops you more than all the others. That's just my humble opinion on that. And
I'd have to agree with that. I do think it's a great life lesson sport.
Yeah.
I was never that good at it, but I think also I was disadvantaged because of the weight classes when I was wrestling, where, I had to lose good 30 pounds every season to make weight because I played football at 215 and we had a heavy weight, and I wasn't necessarily big enough when we had an unlimited weight class, and needed to fill the 185-pound weight class. And so I'd lose every year, gain back. But now with 194, 220, and 285,
you get in there pretty good.
Yeah, it would have changed a lot of things with other aspects of sport. But you never look back with regret. You always look back and say, well, what was the experience I gained from this, and how does it help me tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's a good outlook. And an outlook that you take into retirement too, right? You can look back and and view things on, where you were successful or where you failed, but it's mostly about moving forward. The stuff in the past is the past. Like I played football on a pretty high level when I was young. And the only thing I take out of it now is the people I played with. I'm still in awe of some of the people I played with. I'm grateful for that. And that's how I view the wins and losses, the touchdowns and any of that is really of no consequence anymore. It's only about the experience of the people I did it with. That's what I take out of it. It's, I'm fortunate to have, to shared a field with those people. That's how and I still feel that way. I love those guys. because of kind of what we went through to have to be able to do it. You experienced it yourself, that whole team concept and the time you spent with your teammates, good and bad. That whole experience is really what's important. You won some, you lose some, you did your best, but they can't take away that team concept and the love you have for one another. I mean, I hear professionals talk that the game that meant the most to them, these are guys that won the Super Bowl, was the championship high school game that they either won or lost. That's the big, that's how connected they were to the team, your hometown, your team. There is something to that where, I know they're close as professionals and what have you, but it's still not the same as, your hometown. The guys you went to class with, the guys you went to the parties with, the guys you went out to get something to eat with, or, that's how I look back on, and grateful that I still have some of those relationships and what it taught me. And, I'm better for it. I'm a better person for having been with those people and experienced the things I did with those people. So
sounds like a great thought to wrap this all up on today, since we're kind of getting long in the time, okay. And I think we could probably talk forever on this.
Well, but, Jeff, it's always a pleasure. You know that I love you, and I appreciate your podcast and also learning about these new directions that you're going to be moving in. And I'm very pleased to hear that and happy to hear that.
Well, sounds good. So thank you all for listening, and we will hopefully see you continue to age well. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast, and until next time, keep aging well. If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers.